welcome to Mono Tutorials. In this tutorial we're going to be looking at animation in Unity. So we're going to be looking at adding animations, navigating the animation window, animating position, rotation and scale, a quick look at materials, and a very quick look at audio animation. First I'm going to create a cube for a separate animation. Put that there. I would also like to add an empty game object, so I can put a couple of different objects inside that one as children. In this case, we actually want to put the game object over here, so that when we move our sphere, notice how it is 0.75 here. So this position is relative to the parent, not the world. So keep that in mind when you're animating. Let's move that over here. Let's put in a cylinder as well. Like so. I'll also add an avatar, so I can do a quick example of rigged animation. So we have our three examples, one separate, one grouped, and another separate, which should be in the space. Now, if you don't have the animation and animator windows, for today's session we don't really need to worry about the animator, but we do need to worry about animation. This can be found in the window, animation, animation, and animator is here when you need that as well. So click on that, and that will be, if you need to move it around wherever you like, you can do that as well. Now, to add an animation to an object, click on the object. Now, notice there is no animator component or animation component, therefore this will be available, and I find this the easiest way to add an animation and animator. It does need both. So we're going to create an animation. Let's make this our cube animation. Now this record button is your friend. Anything you do in the timeline will be recorded. Now, because it doesn't exactly know if it's a rotation keyframe, you have to actually move it and then move it back. So if we hold down Control, I can move up a little bit and then down a bit, and that will be exactly where it was to start. And a keyframe is made. After that, we can move to a new keyframe, move that up. And then if we wanted to, we could move that down using Control to lock it in the same place, or we can left click on this, Control C, and because the playhead is there, Control V to paste the exact same keyframe. So we have our simple animation. Now, if we want to, we can use curves. So if I left mouse click, drag around these keyframes, I can press F, which will focus on all of the objects. I can modify the handles if I wanted to. And I can change the handles by right mouse click and then choosing other options here. Check out the Unity documentation to get a better understanding of these, but the ones I usually use is auto or broken. So auto will kind of smooth that out rather than ease in and ease out, and broken will allow you to do that. But I'm going to go with auto. Now, because all of them were selected, all of them were set to auto. But if I select one, like I have here, I can do that. That is still auto. Let's take that to broken. So I can do this. And then let's set this to flat. So flat just makes it very flat. So let's play that, and we have this interesting example of an animation. So looking at some of the key tools for the animation window, you can use scroll to zoom in. You can use middle mouse click to move around the space. You can left click drag and press F to focus on selection. This is especially useful with curves. So that's very difficult to see, but that is much easier. You can see all of the objects here. If you find that you have a lot of objects, so say for example this gets a bit unwieldy, there's many objects in there, we can optimize this a bit better by having animations on different objects separately. So you only have one object per animation. But if you need or do use this approach, you can use filter by selection. So say for example I've selected this, it will only show the things that are animated on that object. So that will clean up that if you have a lot of objects in one space. You can add keyframes on a certain object very easily by using the keyframe button there. And events are not supported in Mona at this point in time. As this object is not looped, so we can find our multiple loop animation. We can do that. You can therefore, you can start seeing the loop when you select on the animation or the object with the animator. So you can see that loop there and see if it connects correctly with the effect that you're wanting to go for on a looped object. So it's quite useful to match up different things there. Now, of course, with position, that's very easy. We can also do this with any of the other tools. Rotate, control to snap, snap it back. Once again, make sure your record is on. Let's go rotate 180. So I use the yellow arc there, which is very useful for rotation to make sure you get the right setting. Now with rotation, you cannot control pastes because that will go back to its original rotation. So what you need to do is, if it goes back, I would just rotate in the same direction you would like it, the full 360 degrees, and you will have the full animation loop there. And of course, scale is also easy to do. Control to snap, snap back. You can use this to snap to the next keyframe or this to the end keyframe. So let's go 3-dimensional smaller. Of course, you can use these directions if you want to go one direction. Go to the end, and with scale, of course, you can copy and paste that one if you want to go back to the original. Now, I'm not a fan of the curve here, so I'm going to put that back to auto. Then we have our fantastic animation. So that's a simple animation on a single object. Now, if I click on multiple objects, I lose my animation, and this is why I put these two under this one object. By putting it under the one object, I can animate any children objects with the one animator. So to do that, once again, there's no animator or animation here, so I can create a new one. Multiple animation. Save. So in this case, once again, hit record. I can move the game object, but I can also move the singular objects. Get rid of the gizmos here. So that allows me to animate all of the objects individually or not. Now, the problem with this is if I have all these objects in one animation, they have one timeline. So if I wanted to loop and say I wanted this sphere to animate a short loop, and I wanted the cylinder to animate a long loop, then the sphere would stay still for the wait till the timeline is ended. Now I could create a double loop, but sometimes the loops don't line up as nicely as you would like. So to get around this, what you can do is say I want the sphere to have its own animation. I can, because this is under this animator, I can put a new animator, type in an or whatever, or a, and the animator will come up. Click on that. Click on another object, come back to the sphere, and then you can create a new animation. So that's how I would get around this problem of different loop times. So I can create a loop there. Let's do a really short one. 2 up and 2 down, 2 down. So if I press play, it will compile all of the animations together. Now notice how it's not looping correctly. This is because the parent animator and animation is overriding the child animator and animation. I'm going to delete the sphere position. So this one, and this one. So get rid of those. So it's just that one going for a good 2-second period there. And then when I press play, go to scene, that will loop at a different loop. So once you have your animations, we can make sure that they loop or not, depending on what you've selected here. So you have your animations, click on the animation, which is the little triangle with the animator. This is the animator object, but these are the animations. So let's go with cube animation. We want that to loop, and maybe for the multiple animation, we do not. Let's click that, show the scene quickly, and then it will stop, whereas the loop and the cube will continue to loop. Next up, let's look at some materials. Now I have created a material here with a simple tile object, so let's put this on there. Now basically any inspector parameter that is allowed to be animated can be seen very easily by looking at if it goes red or not with record on. So that's red, that's red, that's red. So let's get rid of those. But let's go with this one. So let's animate the material on this as well as the going up and down. So to do that, we press record. And we go to the material of the object, and you have all of these. And many of these parameters can be animated. So smooth, for example, can be. So it goes red. The normal map amount. So if you go here, we can make that more. So that goes animated. Emissive color can be animated. So you can see that that is red. So you can animate that over time, and brightness if you wanted to. I've used tiling or offset quite a bit for some of my animations. So you can, once again, type in 0 and 1 to make that the keyframe. And then you can go to the 5 point and do 5. So you can do some interesting effects with that. But the one I've used the most is, of course, offset. So I can make it animate over time. Now, if you want a clean loop, of course, you would play with setting this to auto, so it's smooth. Let's do all of those, for example. Auto. Now, if I want that to loop here, I can do so. And it keeps the same pace. And you can also use up or down if you wanted to. So you have quite a lot of functionality there. Secondary maps also can be animated. There's basically many tools. Another thing you can do if you wanted to is you can animate the active element of this, but if it's not active and something is looking for it, for example, Reactor, it will not see it. So I would recommend using Mesh Renderer and Capsule Collider to turn off an object for all intensive purposes, and then you can put those back on if you wanted to. So let's say we go here, make it disappear, and then turn it back on here. You can, of course, use animation on an audio source. I've just quickly made an audio source here. So added an MP3, a new mixer, for example, audio mixer. Drag the master onto the output and the MP3 onto the audio clip. And then because this is on the multiple objects animation, I can therefore start animating all of these. So I could mute it, I can bypass effects, I can bypass reverb zone, I can play on awake, I can loop and turn it off, I can change the priority if I wanted to. Volume is a very useful one, of course. Pitch, all of these are... Oh, spatial blend is not, and reverb zone mix is also not. So some things are, some things aren't. One thing I have noted that if you're using Reactor to sort of play an event, like a trigger, for example, I will make sure that play on awake is on and not animated. So let's get rid of all these, for example. So play on awake is on. And then I will animate this going on and off. So say, for example, this is off to start, and then it will go on. And as soon as it goes on, it will play on awake. So it will trigger the audio. You can use that with Reactor. I'll go in that with the Reactor tutorial. Another, of course, is volume. So let's say we want to put that at 1. And here we want to put that at 0. Then you'll have the audio volume going up over time. Very useful for audio sources, and you can use that as you need to. But basically, anything that you can tweak with the record button is animatable in the Mona space, and therefore Reactor. So super powerful when you apply the two together. But for this lesson, we're just going to be focusing on the animation. Now we've added our avatar as well, so let's create a quick animation for him, or her, for them. So robot. Now once again, this is outside of these animations, but because it's on the top, we can control the mesh if we wanted to, or the skeleton. So let's go with a quick arm wave, shall we? So go rotation. Let's go here. Lower arm. Generally with rigs, I recommend leaving it to local and pivot. Otherwise you might mess up some of the rotations and it's harder to fix later. Once again, remember to put on record. Let's go a 1 second wave here. 2 second wave back. Go to the start using that button, press V. And then we have a wave. Now, just as a quick reference, so say for example, we want to do the right hand as well. So let's go over there. Over there. And copy paste. Well, let's grab all three actually. Control V. Now with the hand, we want a bit of lag on that one because principles of animation. So we want a delay. Then when we loop, we have that nice sort of follow through with the hand. So that's a quick example of using follow through to create a more realistic animation. So that's a quick example Well, not so quick example of animation. Thanks for watching and happy building.